Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Hertz, and I'm the director of the Regional Entrepreneurship Center, the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College. And I'd like to thank our partners at this time and give a special thanks to SDSU's Lavin Center, the SDSU Zip Launchpad. We'd like to thank the California Entrepreneurship Educators Conference. Also like to thank Harness, the Brink SBDC at USD, San Diego Unified Schools. We'd also like to thank the School of Entrepreneurship and Technology, High Tech High, the Regional Advisory Committee, Alex Waters at the Jacobs Center, Connect All, 21IQ Labs, Startup Quest, Productified. I'd like to thank Course Key and Tech Coast Angels. Thank you to Village Up, City Heights Development Corporation, San Diego Angel Conference, Startup San Diego, SBDC, Score San Diego, We Are Kingdom, New Media Rights, San Diego Tech Hub, Origin 63, Ambrosio 15, OmniSync, Optima Office, Proven Recruiting, Craft Leadership, GSNL Consulting. Thank you to all of our partners. We couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you. And welcome everybody here to our workshop today at the Rec Innovation Lab. We have a very special guest with us today, Jeff Mata. He's come and spoken to the Rec many times in the past, and we just love every time he comes. His perspective is so it's valuable, it's unique, and he knows what he's talking about. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's started several successful startups. He runs a jiu-jitsu center, and he is just an amazing guy. And he's does all this. I don't know if I should tell those of you who know, but he's 100% totally blind, visually impaired, and does more than most of us, on any given day. I don't know how you fit it all in a day, Jeff. I don't know how you impress the heck out of us. So thank you so much for being here, Jeff. Now, I'm gonna, as you know, I'm not gonna be with us for the entire presentation, but I will be back here shortly. Stephen will be with us though. Stephen, would you like to say anything to the audience before Jeff gets going?
Oh, no, I think you put it perfectly, all of the accomplishments for him. And I think one thing to note is that he himself is San Diego raised and born and raised. So he's not just some random entrepreneur, but he is really ingrained in the local community.
And a former San Diego Community College student, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which I love that. Any alum of Miramar, that makes me so proud. And so Jeff, would you like to go ahead and get started and take it away? Awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks again for having me. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to my workshop on how to develop your startup dream team. Now, real quickly, I just want to start off with a quick exercise with all of you. And I'm going to ask all of you to close your eyes for me. So go ahead and close your eyes. And as your eyes are closed, I want you to start thinking about what would make up your own dream team. The types of people. Are there any certain faces that you see popping up in your head? Are there any special skill sets that you need on your dream team? Perhaps the interdependency is going to be very, very high. Do you have any superheroes on your dream team? Or maybe a professional athlete? But again, I want you to start to figure out those faces and those people and eventually start to cultivate that dream team in your head. Perfect, perfect. All right. Go ahead and open your eyes now. And I'm sure all of us, if not most of us, have some familiar faces that come up, or again, like I said, a specialized skill set. Depending on what project you're working on or startup that you're trying to launch, whether it's a product or service and you're bringing it to the market, again, we want to make sure that we have the right people on our team. And that's why they say an organization is only as good as the people who run it. So real quickly, I want to know what your thoughts are. So if you could go ahead and type in the comment bar what you think makes up a good group or just a team in general. So any words, any adjectives, any characteristics, but what do you think makes up a team? And we're just going to go through that real quickly. Good. All right. I'm sure most of you know that there needs to be people in a group. And I found one definition that actually breaks it down so well from the Ken Blanchard's company. And they defined it as two or more people working interdependently and effectively towards a common purpose or goal with shared accountability and results. Again, two or more people working interdependently and effectively, which I feel is huge, interdependence and the effectiveness of the group itself towards a common purpose / goal with shared accountability and results. And as we start to find the right people in our teams or pick up other interns or whatever the case may be, you're going to start to find out what works for you and for your team itself. So I want to go on a quick group engagement type of deal. I'm going to pull up a poll. So Stephen, can we go ahead and pull up the first poll? And you'll see here on your screens, the poll is going to ask you, choose the top 3 characteristics or attributes that constitute a bad team. Okay, a bad team now. So go ahead and look at those choices. Again, there are no right or wrong answers, just whatever you feel are the top 3. Go ahead and choose the top 3 and send in those answers, and we're going to look at that result. Let's just take a few more seconds. So anyone go ahead and just keep on choosing your choices and send them through.
Yeah, we got about 21 of the 30 people who have voted. So I'd say give it maybe like 20 more seconds.
20 more seconds. Any last minute stragglers out there, go ahead and put them in.
Okay, I think I'm going to close it in 5 seconds. So if anybody put in your last minute votes, all right, I'm going to close it now.
All right. So let's go ahead and share those results, and I'm kind of curious to see what they are. What do we got here, Stephen?
So in third place, we at 56% of the vote, we have lack of openness and trust.
Yes, lack of openness and trust. We definitely need to be open with our team members, and trust is a huge deal, especially with building that rapport and the relational portions of the group itself. Okay.
At second place, the second most voted at 76% is no accountability.
No accountability. Yes. And you remember in that last definition that we just went over, there needs to be that shared accountability, right? We want to take ownership for what we're doing. And again, keeping that accountability with one another so that we can see some good results.
And not surprisingly, first place is at 84% of the vote is lack of communication.
Lack of communication, right? I mean, we're communicating right now, and we always talk about this, and you learn about this in entrepreneurship. You learn it in psychology. I mean, all across the board, depending on what you're doing. Again, we want to make sure that we have all these elements again for a team. These are all great, right? All right. So again, I want to flip it to the other side now and pull up one more poll. Again, another group engagement. Can we go ahead and choose the top 3 characteristics or attributes of a good team now? A good team. You guys did really well on the last one. Let's see what we get here. Super, super smart, intelligent people on today. We'll just take a couple more seconds.
Oh, we had something at 100%, but now it's good. It's getting down there. We had something at 100% for a good chunk of the time.
Yeah. All right, that's all right. You know.
Yep.
Don't be shy. I can't see you. I'm totally blind.
All right, I'm gonna give it 10 more seconds. So last minute scragglers, please put in your votes, and then I'm gonna end it in about 5 seconds now.
All right.
And I'm gonna end the polling now. All right, I'm gonna share the results.
Yep. Let's see what we got here.
So at third place, Jeff, with 69% of the votes, we have mutual accountability as an attribute of a good team.
Yep. And exactly. I mean, that shows that we are all taking ownership on what we have and what role we take. And again, keeping that accountability shared. Okay, great.
At second place, we have at 73% of the vote, we have trust.
Trust, yes, trust. We need to make sure that we're trusting each other. I know for myself, I've been kind of hosed in a couple different business opportunities that I had. And again, it was that lack of trust.
And number one at 88% is effective communication.
Effective communication. I mean, right there, we already know that. Again, we want to make sure that we're communicating with one another effectively. And one other thing about effective communication that we have to understand is active listening, right? We want to make sure that we're listening to each other and really finding another person's point of view with that open mind. But all right, that's awesome. That's really good. You guys are definitely on the right page. And I honestly feel that, again, all of those elements with the trust, the accountability, the effective communication, all that stuff is definitely needed and very imperative for our startup dream team. So let's go ahead and get into the nuts and bolts of the workshop. The first portion that I want to actually go over was trust. So with trust, how many of you know how long it takes to build trust within a group? Does anybody have any idea? Maybe from some past experiences? I'm sure that, again, it's very subjective depending on what your past experiences were, especially in the group realm of things, especially as a student or even someone working on a job. You'll start to see that a lot of things that are happening now takes a lot of group work, whether it's a project, again, in your class or even at the job site. We're always working in teams. And one person that I actually want to reference was Simon Sinek. He's the author of Leaders Eat Last, Why Some Teams Can Pull Together. And he came up with this rule he calls the rule of 7, right? And the rule of 7 states that trust takes more than 7 days and less than 7 years. And I can honestly attest to that because in a bunch of different group activities that I've done, especially launching my first startup, it's all about building that trust. And some of us are a little too impatient when we're working with each other. And again, it really takes patience to find that trust and that Goldilocks effect of building the rapport with one another and knowing that I can trust you on what you're saying, and you can trust me on me being able to deliver what I am saying that I'm going to do. And if anyone's taking notes right now, go ahead and write this down. I want you to write this down. We're going to go over what's called the ABCD model. This was illustrated by Dr. Vicky Halsey. Again, it's called the ABCD model. It's a trust builder model. And she states that if we can actually get through those 4 components, trust is going to be a lot easier when we build within our group members and the group itself. So let's go ahead and break it down. The first one is A being able. So are you able to do the job or get it done? And not just able, but willing and able. Some people could have the skill set and they're capable of doing the actual job itself, but if they're not willing to do it, nothing's going to get done. And I'm sure some of you have run into that problem or came across an obstacle or challenge where someone just was not able to do the job when in the beginning of this group formation or the project itself, they had the quote unquote skill set or they're able to do it, but again, they didn't get the job done. So again, we need to make sure that we are able. The next one is B for believable. Believable is what you say, truly what you do. So many people talk the talk, but they're not walking that walk, saying that I can do this and that. But again, there's no believability in that. And again, can I believe what you're saying you're going to do is what you're really going to do? Which brings us to the next one, C for connected, or that you care. So for someone being connected, do you care for this project as much as all your other group members? Do you care as much as the founder or the CEO or the president of this startup? Again, with the being able, you're willing and able and being believable, but now we're talking about the commitment now, the commitment of being a team member and getting the job done. So again, we want to make sure that we are connected and that we are caring about the job itself. And the last and final portion to the ABCD trust model is D for dependable. Can we depend on you? Are you going to be reliable, and not just reliable, but consistent with all the tasks that you have to do, the processes, and again, being able to say, you know what, I'm gonna get it done and I won't even have to really question it. So again, the ABCD trust model, it's huge. It's really huge, especially when you don't know the person and you guys are trying to build this relationship where we can achieve the end goal or that common purpose, bringing that product or that service to the market. And one thing that I want to really touch on too is when we're in a group, again, there are actual stages of group formation. Again, and I would say that understanding these stages of the group formation is going to be huge for your growth as a group, as well as the progression of what you're doing as a group itself. And the stages were actually, they were actually invented or created by this educational psychologist, Bruce Tuckman, in 1965. Would you get that? He literally studied a bunch of groups and broke it down and came up with 4 stages. And years later came up with a 5th one. But again, I just want to really touch on the first 4 stages because these are the stages that you all are going to go through, especially if you're trying to launch the startup or get into the workforce and work on a team. So those of you that are taking notes, go ahead and write this one down. Stage 1 for group formation is forming. This is where everyone's excited. I'm glad that I got on the team. We made it. And again, everyone, the energy is up. The energy is up in the room, but we really have no direction. You know, people are high-fiving each other and exchanging numbers. Hey, I'll follow you on my IG account if you follow me, right? I'll send a like if you send a like. But again, the energy is up high. We're excited, and this is forming. And within this forming stage, we want to make sure that we do what's called the chartering process. Chartering, making sure that we are creating the group norms and the culture for the group itself when we actually get into working on the project. And within this chartering section, we want to make sure that we know what our roles and our goals are. Roles and goals. Make sure that they're clear, and they are clear. Nobody likes to get that ambiguous or that vague area of, what am I supposed to do again? What's my role? What's the goal? Again, we don't need that. And that's why the chartering process is going to be super important in being able to get your group on the right page and also on the same page. So again, roles and goals, we need to make sure that they're clear. Effective communication, we talked about that, but now we need to make sure we know what mediums of communication we're going to be using. So for instance, are we going to be using a Google Doc because we need to revise and edit some sort of document if you guys are drawing up a business plan or doing some charts or what have you? Or do I need to email somebody if I have any questions, or can I call them or shoot them a text? Again, establishing what mediums of communication you're going to be using to get what you need to be done. And again, being effective in that communication line. And with this chartering process, remember, you can actually revisit it if you want to. Again, if you run into any challenges or obstacles later during your project. And again, making sure that we are making clear, concise roles and goals. And again, being able to effectively communicate. Now, the second stage is storming. And within the storming stage, now people are getting to actually know each other now. And we're just not happy. People are getting on your nerves. There's no production. Again, we're just not getting anything done. And this is the storming stage. That's why they call it storming. But we have to understand too is it's a critical time for growth if you think about it. Because yeah, we're not happy. We're failing at things and we're finding all these different challenges. But that's where we have to learn from those failures, getting those lessons on what we need to do if this happens again. And I mean, everyone knows the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So within this stage, if you guys are doing the same thing over and over, you better expect that same result. So we need to make sure that we're taking note of it and we're conscious about what we failed at, but at the same time learning from it and moving forward. And you know, failure, that's such, they have such a negative connotation, but really you'll hear a lot of different people talking about fail forward or fail fast so that you can learn what not to do as you progress in whatever venture you're going through. Which brings us to the third stage of norming. Now things are starting to get better. Look at us, we're moving right along. I'm actually producing things and people are understanding what their role is now. And during this stage, I really, really want to encourage you all to really celebrate those small wins. Those little small wins, hitting those small milestones, chunking away at the big picture. But again, we want to build that morale up, the camaraderie with one another. So with the norming stage, we want to make sure that we are celebrating those small wins. And finally, it brings us to stage 4, which is performing. And that's the end goal, right? We want to make sure that we are a high performance team, hitting milestones effectively, efficiently, and fast. And now we've created and we've established these systems that are working. And all we have to do now is sustain them. But again, since we're a high performing team, we're just this fine-tuned engine, just moving right along. And again, this is the end goal of getting to the performing stage. So again, let me go ahead and recap that. Again, stage 1 is going to be norming. We're excited, but there's really no direction. The second stage is going to be storming. People aren't happy. Things are just not going the right way. The third stage of norming, now things are starting to go, the ball is rolling. And last but not least, performing, just being able to have that high performing type of deal. So I want to switch gears real quick now. We talked about trust and we talked about being able to build that trust within that model. But the next thing I really want to really delve into is the concept of reciprocity. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of it. We talk about that in different business classes, maybe in psychology or communication classes. But again, the concept of reciprocity. So how much are you giving in comparison to how much you are taking? Ask yourself that. And this could be in anything, when you're dealing with your spouse, or you're dealing with a loved one, even family members, on the personal side or even professional. But again, ask yourself, how much are you giving in comparison to how much you're taking? We all know when we're getting treated unfairly, or we kind of get the crappier end of the stick, right? And with reciprocity, if you actually understand this and put it in practice, you'll start to feel this balance, or you'll see a shift of things starting to happen, because now you're giving, but you're also receiving at the same rate. And like I said, people know when they're getting treated unfairly, and you have to understand that each and every one of us is a limited resource. You have only a limit of the time and energy and resources that you can give, and myself, the same thing. So think of it like a bank, right? I love using this analogy. So if we were all banks, what do we do in banks? We withdraw funds and we also deposit funds. Obviously, if you deposit funds in your account, you're going to have more, but if you withdraw more than you deposit, then you're going to have less. So if we're all limited resources and we're continuously giving and taking, the concept of reciprocity is going to show you who's taking advantage and who's really giving you that balance. And us as individuals, if we want to show that we respect somebody and their time and their energy, again, we want to give as much as we're taking. So again, like I said, really ask yourself, the next time you're working with somebody or you're asking for a favor, how much are you giving? in comparison to how much you are taking. And that again is reciprocity. Okay. Um, One thing that I love doing, especially during the times when I'm working with my groups, is really giving them an opportunity to tell me what's really going on with them, and if I am giving them enough time and energy to fulfill their needs. And I found that the the what I'm getting back, okay, what I'm getting back from them is a lot more effective and more constructive than if I was trying to do it myself. And you'll start to learn that we all have strengths and weaknesses, but that's why we're bringing a team in, because again, we want to bring people in that are stronger than us in those weaknesses that we come across. So the reciprocity, really think about what you are giving in comparison to what you're taking. And finally, I just want to go over quickly the theory or the concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ, emotional quotient. Everyone knows that there's IQ, but there's also EQ. And this is really the capacity to understand and assess your own feelings and emotions, as well as your peers or the people that you work with, and be able to manage them and manage your peers and group members, as well as influencing them. So Daniel Goleman in the 1990s actually popularized this by writing the book Emotional Intelligence, which I actually read before. I actually read it a few times, but I read it again before I was doing this workshop, and I pulled a couple little nuggets out just to share with you all, because I want to make sure that you understand too that you yourself can increase your EQ by focusing on the 4 quadrants that he talks about. Okay, so the first quadrant, that would be on the top left, it's self-awareness. So with self-awareness, this is where you're actually being able to assess why you're feeling a certain way or feeling some type of emotion. And one exercise that I love doing is, if I get into some funk or something, or some sort of conflict, I will really sit back and reflect on why I acted a certain way or why I felt a certain way for a certain circumstance, so that I could then know that I can consciously be aware of, if this happens again, I'll know exactly why I acted like that. And this is huge when you're working within your team members and your groups. People see through people all the time. They can see right through you, and through the smile, through the makeup, through the great tie you're wearing. Again, people can see through people, and being aware of yourself and how you would react to something is going to be big, especially when you're working with others. Now, the second quadrant is going to be on the bottom left. That's going to be self-management. And this is where we're actually moving from being able to just assess our feelings to actually managing them or controlling them in a constructive way. In this sense, really, you need to know what your core values or your core beliefs are. Being able to manage those feelings and emotions, because again, with emotion, you need to know that motion, where that word comes from, it's energy in motion. So you have all this energy in motion, and it makes you say things that you regret saying, or it makes you act a different way. But again, that's that energy in motion. So really know your core values. And if you're taking notes, write this down. If you know who you are, then you also know who you are not. Again, if you know who you are, then you know who you are not. And that comes with the core values that I was talking about. I know that I'm good at this, and this, but I also know that I'm not good at this, and this. So really understand yourself, and you in turn will be able to increase your EQ. Now, the third quadrant, that's going to be on the top right. That's going to be social awareness, meaning you now know and you're assessing your peers or your group members' feelings and emotions, and you're able to assess them and not let your own emotions get in the way. one exercise that I do here with my own team members is I'll let them speak and vent out, but I'll also give them that constructive criticism so that they can be aware that they did this. And in turn, you are actually helping them increase their EQ as well. Which brings us down to the fourth quadrant on the bottom right, and that is relationship management. So those of you that are leaders in your team, and it doesn't even matter if you're a leader or not, but this really pertains to the point man or woman or the CEO or whoever the case may be. But now you're actually starting to elevate your peers or your group members. You're being able to manage all the different egos out there, all the different personalities. But again, making sure that it's constructive in a way that they're growing too, just as much as you, because again, the end goal is we want everybody to elevate, right? And if that's not the case, then you're really not going to find any success in anything that you do. And I'm a real proponent on being able to manage those relationships that I'm doing in my life, whether it is personal or professional. But again, that's being aware of what people are feeling and then being able to assess and almost influence them to get back on track. So we went over a few different things. So let me just go ahead and recap exactly everything that we went over real quick. So the first portion was trust. Remember, we talked about trust. And we have Simon Sinek, the rule of 7, that says trust takes more than 7 days and less than 7 years. Then we went to the ABCD trust model. That's going to be able, believable, committed, or connected, or even that you care. And the last one is D for dependable. And then we ran into the stages of group formation. There's 4 stages that we went over. It was forming, storming, norming, and performing. And if you want to know the 5th one, is that Tuckman actually put a couple years later, it's actually adjourning or mourning. That's when the group has finished, everyone is going their separate ways, but that is actually another stage of the group formation. And then we switched gears into the concept of reciprocity, right? So ask yourself, how much are you giving in comparison to how much you are taking? And then last but not least, we went over emotional intelligence or EQ. The 4 quadrants again, on the top left, it would be self-awareness. On the bottom left, it would be self-management. And then on the other side, the top would be social awareness. And the last one is relationship management. So I want to encourage you all today to go out there with your teams, your groups, the projects, whether you're bringing a product or service to the market, and really use these tools, these tips and tricks to cultivate that dream team that you deserve. Because again, an organization is only as good as the people who run it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Jeff. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself, turn off your camera, and ask a question. Meanwhile, Jeff, I did get a question in the chat sent privately to me, and so I think they wanted it to maybe be anonymous. The question was, have you ever had a quote unquote dream team that you found out was actually not that great of a team later on in the cycle? And if so, what did you have to do to deal with that?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay. Good question. Good question. Yes. So I thought I had this dream team working for me. What was I? I was doing a launch for this branding campaign for motivation. That's that business, my public speaking and consulting business that I have, and I brought in a member that was fully skilled for it. They're able, and things were going really well. But in the long run, that specific person had a different motive, right? And I found out that they were I don't want to put their business out there, but like doing some financial stuff. We'll just keep it at that. And what I had to do is I had to put a stop to it. This is the hardest part too, is firing people. That it's very difficult, especially if they're very dear to you or if you have some sort of connection. But uh, ultimately, I had to let the person go and then find someone to fill that role. But um, to answer your question, yes, it has happened to me, and um, I I I did a couple of different stages where I actually gave them another chance, and it just wasn't working, especially for the group itself. So I just had to make an executive decision and let them go. I hope that answers your question.
I have a follow-up question to that personally.
Yeah.
So if you could go back and change anything you did differently with that person, is there anything you would have changed, or do you think you just did it the right way and that it's just the circumstance that made it so you couldn't really figure it out?
I think I wouldn't have had my okay. So this person I knew personally, so I wouldn't have had my blinders on. You know. Another thing too is it's very hard. I can only speak about myself. Okay, so this is my own personal experience. So that's the disclaimer. Okay, but I've worked with family and friends before, and it never works. Just it's hard. It's hard, and for this particular person, I should have seen the red flags earlier. But again, because we had this built up rapport with each other, I just overlooked it. But if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have looked for a different candidate.
Look for a different candidate
Mhm.
and not have your
And
blinders on.
exactly. Because I mean, again, when we're close to someone, um, things just like just go right past your head, you know, like and people outside that are looking in are like, wow, did that really happen to you? Like, and you let that happen. So again, just having those blinders on and being very vigilant in those red flags at early stages, because with that trust builder model or the rule of seven, more than 7 days and less than 7 years, people usually start to show their true colors within like 4 to 6 months of working with somebody.
So 4 to 6 months is when
Yeah.
you get to see how
Oh,
the real person,
the
how
real
they
person.
actually,
That's
the
where the
real person.
defaulted, the default starts to show of who this person really is. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else have any questions in the chat? Nope, I don't see any questions in the chat, but feel free to have one. I did get a question earlier that was, I know you mentioned a lot of books and authors.
Yeah.
Who would you say are your top, let's say, three authors for just leadership, management, motivation, anything in general?
Oh man, dude, I have so many.
Let's do top five then.
Okay, yeah. Simon Sinek, he's huge. He's good. Eckhart Tolle, that's Tolle. He's really good. I just read. Oh man, what was that other book? I literally just read it. If anyone is into finance or anything like that, I'm reading a book right now called "The Creature from Jekyll Island: A Second Look at the Federal Reserve," and that book will blow your mind. I mean, I forget who the author is, but look it up. It's a really good book.
I just looked it up. It's Edward Griffin, G.
Oh,
Edward
Edward Griffin.
Griffin.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good book.
Oh, that was it. You didn't have any more recommendations for us?
You know what was a huge game changer for me? And I believe it's okay. It was Jack Redfield, The Celestine Prophecy. And just a quick little, like, I guess, premise is that I'll leave with you. It's a one-liner for that. It's like, nothing is a coincidence. So you have to read the book to understand what I'm saying. But remember that phrase. If you ever pick up Jack Redfield's book, The Celestine Prophecy, nothing is a coincidence.
Okay. Thank you for those recommendations for the books. I'm sure I'm gonna go look at these, and if I have time, read them, or maybe just read an audiobook as I'm sleeping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, totally.
So I know recently you did start your very own Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
Right.
um, Do you have your dream team for that yet? How's the process been going for that?
It actually happened kind of organically. So I've been training at this jiu-jitsu gym here in Poway. It's actually Poway Jiu-Jitsu, right? And my buddy JD was in that owned it. And he kept on saying, "Hey man, I know that you're gonna want a gym later." And I said, "Nah, I don't want a gym. I don't want to deal with all that stuff. I just want to train. And I said, "Well, maybe, it may happen." And sure enough, come around the pandemic, we were about to close, and he proposed to myself and one of the other instructors or professors there on taking over. And I said, "What the heck? Let's give it a shot." I had some investment money that I could throw around and stuff. So, and the price was right. So I picked up my business partner now, and he's doing, he's really, really good. And we're actually starting to build our program since the pandemic is slowly starting to deteriorate and people are starting to come out now. So we're actually going to be looking for help in a little bit. And we're honestly just, it's good. It's really good. I can say. So right now, as of right now, yes, the dream team is valid. We'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, that's great that you started out with the dream team. No, a lot of people, like you said, have to do a lot of work to get that.
Yes.
That's awesome that you just kind of just organically force itself into your business.
Yeah, exactly. And then for those of you that are on here still, that are launching your first startup, know that it's going to be a work in progress. You're not going to just find the right people right away, especially for a startup. And then you're going to start to see the motivation start to decrease, because motivation, I can motivate you for a day or a week, but eventually it's going to subside. So for those of you that are founders or presidents of these startups, really build that trust with your team members. And again, like I said, when you're norming, to really celebrate those small wins. It goes a long way. Those little small wins, celebrations, it goes a real long way.
Thank you, Jeff. I think Enzo had a question in chat. Enzo asks, how do you separate regular productive conflict within the team versus negative conflict that may harm the future of the business? So like, how can you, in your mind, separate those two and they're not just all conflict?
Okay. Man, Enzo, you always have great questions. Okay. So to decipher what would be negative to the group itself to just conflict, just general conflict, you're going to have to really listen into, number one, what the conflict or what the issue is, and number two, ranking them on severity. Because if you have conflict within the team members and it's a common theme, then that's something that you could work on really easily, right? But if it's like one person or one thing outside that's going to be cancerous to your team, you probably want to stop it sooner than later, and so for example, if I knew that in the future this person or this particular process or task wasn't going to be good for the group itself or the project, you got to X that out. And that's one thing that is you actually have to work on and experience, right? Is being able to forecast the next 5 years and not think about what's happening just today, right? And I'm constantly trying to innovate and grow the businesses that I run. So problems that happened yesterday, I'm already addressing, and problems I already foresee happening 6 months, a year from now, I'm already addressing like today.
Wow. It's a lot of foresight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It definitely is. A lot of meditation.
So oh, sorry. I was just going to say hi, everybody. I'm back here now, and I just wanted to check in with everyone, and say hello. And Yeah, and thank Jeff, and see where we are on the in the presentation. If there's anything that I can add or anything that we can.
Yeah, Jeff, we are in the Q&A part of the presentation. Jeff has just been answering questions that people have been putting in the chat and been messaging me privately. So if you want to, yeah, if you have a question, go ahead.
I do have a question, and I was hoping that's what you're going to say. So, Jeff, I actually was just I was meeting with the dean of the business department here at Miramar, and he was asking about whether it would be possible for you to join some of the committees. From the student perspective. Yeah, I would love that. That would be wonderful.
I would love it, because honestly, that's so funny you say this. You better be careful for what you ask for, everyone. You really do, because I was journaling this morning, right? Doing my morning routine, 4 a.m. and I'm journaling, and I said, how can I give back? I literally put a question: how can I give back? How can I give back to the community? And then you come up with this. So again, Celestine Prophecy, there are no coincidences. This is not a coincidence.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100% in this. I teach this organizational behavior, leadership and management class.
I love that class.
I know this is my favorite. And we talk about that a lot. You be careful what you wish for. Be careful with what you say, because we have a way of making things actualize.
Yeah, if you can. And the thing is when you actually believe it, it just manifests in the universe. It really does. If you really believe it. And I have this, I think on my tagline, I don't know what social media it was, but it says, if you visualize it, it could happen. And it really can. The visualization practices, that's why I like doing visualization practices in different workshops, because you're able to feel something, as opposed to just reading something or saying something. Now you're feeling it, and there's just something behind being able to feel something that just weighs more than your writing down. And again, there's nothing wrong with writing things down. I always encourage some of my clients that I work with the life strategy coaching that I've been doing, but writing down things.
Yeah, well, thank you. So it looks like we're just about out of time. I know that Angela. Okay, well, this will be the last question from Angela, and then I'll thank everybody for being here. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was really wanting to ask. I wanted to see. I've noticed a lot of teams have had to deal with struggles with this pandemic. And do you have any suggestions on how teams can learn to deal with uncertainty and with challenges with this changing environment? I mean, we're going from working in person to being in a virtual environment to now going back into a hybrid situation. What would you recommend for leaders or for anyone in general on how to deal with this transition time?
Great question, Angela. Great question. So obviously uncertainty avoidance, right? Who's high on uncertainty avoidance and who's low on it, right? And the thing is that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if you can let things go that you have no control over, things just start to happen. And if you are committed to, again, launching that product or that service to the market, and building that rapport and that morale up with your group members, it's constantly communicating on a personal note as well as a professional note, and just being vulnerable with someone and your team members on what is really going on in your life. Because it's so easy to hide shame or doubt or all that great stuff, but when you actually let it out of yourself, and again, not trying to control everything, because we don't have control over everything, things just happen.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful advice, Jeff. And anybody who wants to stick around, we can definitely spend a couple of minutes afterwards discussing, but I do want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. I know there's a couple more of you who have some questions. You're welcome to stick around. For the rest of you, I'm going to let you get on to your next events and classes. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at the Rec Innovation Lab at Miramar College. Bye, everyone.